What's up, New York? How are you? Are you good? Are you good? Come on. This is one of the few times that I have a chance to interview two amazing humans and also people that we are starting a journey with. So I'm very excited about that. But I'm going to just go down the line and just have you guys introduce yourselves because I won't do justice. Cassie, please. Just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and we'll take it from there.
Great. Well, I'm from West Palm Beach. I'm a Libra.
Are you from what?
I'm a Libra too.
You see how Libras bring people together, everybody. Yeah, I'm from Florida.
Okay.
My name is Cassandra Freeman. People know me as Aunt Viv right now on Peacock show Bel-Air. Thank you. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have an amazing company called Creatricity, where we basically bring the creative people together so they can keep creating great things in the vetted community. I'll talk more about that later.
You should have started with me.
Well, come on, man. Anyway, go ahead.
This woman is very
I know. She's very
always
modest
the
right now,
humble
right?
ones, right?
She's like, I just signed the checks.
Exactly. I'm Val Boreland. I'm the head of content acquisition for NBCUniversal. I oversee acquisitions for NBC network, the 6 cable entertainment networks, and Peacock.
Peacock, which we'll talk about. I'm going to start, though, with you, Val, just because your journey has been, throughout this industry and continuing to grow and expand the platforms that you've worked for or have been a part of. And, programming, I think many people don't realize how. It was even interesting, the conversation we had the last time we sat down, where you just said, the world is actually changing from binge watching to now releasing episodic like we used to, and just how programming shifts and changes to adjust with culture. So just tell us, how do you approach programming? I mean, I'm guessing that's kind of probably one of the biggest underlining pieces that we don't see, but which is really what drives consumer engagement.
Yeah, and I wish I could say it's cyclical, because that makes it seem like there's order to it,
right.
But you just have to react to it when it happens. And, just to the example you gave, when streaming started and, Netflix was the game in town, they were just giving everyone everything all at once.
Right.
And that became the way to watch streaming. And, it's however many years later now, and it's a much broader base, bigger base, broader base, older base, watching shows on streaming. And I've often said, linear TV, everyone wants to say linear TV is dying. It's not linear TV dying. People still enjoy that lean in experience. And I think, the lean back experience of linear, where you don't have to think about it. You put something on and you watch it. It's the way in which they're going to watch it, which is becoming and evolving to be more digital. But that cadence, when I was a kid, I hope I don't say that phrase more than once today, but you had to wait for things to come on, and then everyone could talk about it at the same time. And right now, I'm sure there's a wonderful show that's on that you have watched 2 episodes, you haven't started yet, and I'm finished, and we can't have a conversation about it. So this notion of going back to the more traditional way of the weekly cadence, we do it with Bel-Air. It's been fantastic. And you bring people back to your platform over and over again. And it's the strategy doesn't necessarily work with every show, but it's something that I think streaming is embracing a little bit more. So you have to just react, and I think that's a result of the base becoming larger. And I think that you just have to lean in and really look at how people are watching and how they're consuming, and then react to that.
And how much? So that, it's interesting because the water cooler moment.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, okay. There's a few shows that get that water cooler moment now because everybody's talking about. So you binge everything, Bel-Air being one, but there's nothing to look. You don't look forward to it. But now I don't get me wrong. I love a good binge Sunday. I'm very happy.
Same.
But at the same time, I also do like the anticipation of what is going. What's the next.
But
season.
also, when a show is so good, I watch it in 2 days.
Right.
and then I'm done, and then that experience is over.
Right.
It's so
You know,
sad,
it's
too.
yeah. So
Do
sometimes
consumers
it's
tell you
nice.
that? Do you hear that?
I'm sorry, say again.
Do you hear that from consumers?
I'm a consumer, so I hear it for myself.
I'm telling you what I want to watch.
But I mean, if
people-
you go on
people-
Twitter, you can tell on Twitter about what show
Yes.
people are like, that's it?
Yeah,
That's it? Or other people
right.
are like, thank God, that's it. You know?
And production schedules haven't changed, so you still have to wait a full
Right.
year for it. So that year is now longer because all the consumption has happened a little quicker. But I think as more and more streaming services become more reliant on their ad-supported tiers, I think they'll realize that that strategy probably is a little bit better.
You talked a little bit about the entrepreneurial component, which we will come to, but it's weird to watch. First of all, congratulations, of course, to NBC making such a great decision on casting, but also on selection of a show. It's interesting to watch a show that I grew up with, and it was iconic. It was iconic, and to see the reinvention of it, which is, it's not like, hey, we're going to make the old episode. We're actually going to retransform what the show looks like, and it's going to feel totally different and modern, but at the same time have the same through line, and to occupy or to act to take on a character like you have. I guess the question is has there been anything that surprised you about the experience or inspired you about the experience? Like what is it like? Because almost you're stepping into something in a minute.
Yeah, well, I come from the theater background, so like,
Okay. You always step into a character?
yeah, the logical part of my brain, it's like Shakespeare.
Right.
If you create a really great character, it's no different than trying to step into any of a great, Shakespeare, Anton Chekhov. You're like, oh, August Wilson, like this is the 15th viola, But at the same time, because I grew up in real time with The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I thought it was such a bad idea to even bring me into the show because I'm so different from Aunt Viv. And I think what was really smart about the producers of this show is that they were like, we're not trying to recreate what the originals did. They're like, we're trying to expand what was there. I like to think the original show was sort of like the party version of these characters.
Right, fair enough.
And this is like the diary entry into their lives. And I feel like what the main thing I wanted to bring to Aunt Viv was I love Janet Hubert, and I've met Janet Hubert. That's, the first OG Aunt Viv. And I remember the first. And I remember the first day of shooting, I sat in my trailer just to like take in her energy one more time. And then I took in a little bit of Daphne Maxwell, but then I also took in like Diane Carroll. And I really wanted to look at what did these women do the first time the camera hit them? Like, what did the director do? Like, what did they do? And so the entry for Aunt Viv in this show, her arms are like wide open. And she's like, Will. And I was like, if there's something about Janet Hubert's voice that's very similar to mine. And I thought, as soon as we hit the set, my voice like drops an octave. And I thought, as long as I keep the warmth, that's the thing that people remember about Aunt Viv. She had warmth, and then she could turn into this West Philly version. And I told the producers, I'm not interested in playing this like a Juilliard. Like, she must speak as if she's grown up in Bel-Air her whole life. I said, I believe she's one of these people where she kept home inside of her. And so that way the first season is about, oh, I'm so happy Will is here because he reminds me of who I was. And that first season for Aunt Viv is a lot of trying to rediscover the lost part of herself. So to see a young man still very much intact with his West Philadelphia and still growing, I thought, oh, that could be so exciting. And the producers were like, yeah, and we're not just interested in her being like a mom. We want to see like what is the struggle of the woman. And really Aunt Viv is the key that holds all those worlds together. There's no show without her nephew there, no show without her children and her husband are there. So I think the casting, they did a great job, but the writing, but really the casting, the way they found the right people to be a real family, I think is the magic of the show.
I know, everybody, I'm sure, wonders this, and then I want to come to another piece that I thought was interesting, but everybody wants to wonder, how much freedom do you have to shape the character, even down to like the dialogue? You said the writing, but how much is it the writers, and how much is it your relationship with the writer? Like, what?
Yeah, I think it's like symbiotic. Like they come in with an idea, But, you know, the show, even that first season, once you see how I talk, the cadence of how I talk, I think you do end up changing things. But also, I remember the writers and the producers of this show are so open. I remember being like, y'all, like, you know, we just changed our hair. We got to comment on this. Or, y'all, do you remember in the show, like this season, for instance, I talked to Carla Waddles is the showrunner. And I said, you remember there was that episode when Phil and Viv, they're just standing in front of the mirror and he says how beautiful she is. She's like, for me, it meant so much as a little girl for him to talk about her mahogany skin and her voice. I was like, it'd be great if we could recreate that. Like, they're very open because we too are fans of the show. I feel like we're the Smithsonian and we're holding the show with white gloves just as much as the audience. We're like, oh, no, we don't want to mess with that. Oh, but we can mess with that because it's 2024. Let's mess around with it. So it's a little give and take.
Val, when you're looking at a show and reviewing or thinking about it and it's in development, what's going through your mind as you're looking at the writers and the actors? Like, what are you thinking in terms of making a decision? Because you can't make a decision on a total season, so you don't know what you're going to get until that. It's a very small window. So how do you identify hits? Now, remember, you also didn't just do Bel-Air. You also bought my show on CNBC called Cleveland Hustle. So you make very good,
She got amazing
very good decisions.
Amy.
I did neither of those things, but but we did, yes. You know, I think it's hard. I mean, you just asked the question, like, how do you pick the hits? I would be running the company if I knew how to do that, right? Because every time you pick up a show, you hope it's going to be a hit, but there are, you know, external reasons why it might not work. But I think what's important to shows, and especially shows that are so as culturally relevant as Bel-Air specifically, is, you know, the background of the writers. You said the writers, the showrunners, the authenticity of the story. You know, it's definitely, you know, you like even when we were going to do Bel-Air, it's so like such a big part of so many people's lives, the original. Like, how are you going to do it right? And it's, by the way, it was probably harder for you guys to be a new show that was a reimagining of an
People
old
hated
show.
that new show was coming out. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll tell you a funny story, and hopefully it's quick. But I was getting my makeup done this morning, and the makeup artist was doing it, and I pulled out a picture of Cassandra. This is a true story. I swear I'm not just making this up. But I pulled out a picture of Cassandra to say, like, this is who I want to look like, you know? Like, can you do this? Which clearly I need a refund, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm okay with it. My point of my story is that she's like, oh my gosh, I love her. I love that show. And then proceeded to go on for about 10 minutes about she had no idea that I worked at NBCU or at Peacock. And she was just saying, I was so nervous when they were going to do this because I love the old show so much, and they did such a great job. And that's what you want. That's the goal, that you want people to feel like the choices you make are authentic, that they're thoughtful, they're not, you know, gratuitous, like, oh, everyone's doing a remake, let's do a remake, but really think it through. Or whatever subject matter you're approaching.
But you know what I think y'all really did that I just have to commend? It's so rare what y'all did with this show, which is the originator, you could say the creator of this idea is Morgan Cooper, a kid from Kansas City. And he does his own trailer version of this. He drops it on YouTube.
Yep.
And I give it up to you all and Will Smith because you could have been like, okay, little boy, now get out of the way. But instead, I think that's why the show works, because he's from this generation.
Yes.
He's not like a 50, 60-year-old man talking about what would it be. He's from this generation. He brought the music in, like, because even me, I'm not of this generation in that kind of way. So I feel like that through line.
It's this generation's version of what
so it feels
we
so
love
grounded because of that, which is really revolutionary. And you look at how these young people are creating things. It's a balance of like taking what they have, trying to elevate it, but not erase the heart of it. And I think Peacock did it in a way that no one else has been able to do.
It's almost like in music when you sample like old school music and then you make it for this, you know, this generation. That's what it feels like. Yeah.
It's you know, my makeup didn't come out either, did it? Okay, I'm just curious.
This was a Billy, my makeup artist. I'll put it on my Instagram later.
We, you know, all jokes aside, you said you'd be running the company. In my eyes, you do run the company. But what I would say is that people that we've had the opportunity to work with to bring excellence to life, what you said earlier is, as we began to learn NBC, it became clear that NBC thinks a lot different than a lot of the other players in the marketplace. And I'm just going to give you guys an all-out compliment because you know where the marketplace is going, but you're not scared to make real bets and identify places where, and you said the word too, where authenticity is necessary. And in many respects, we've associated authenticity and representation with maybe diversity, but the reality is it's authentic and representative of any culture. You can't play in any space, right?
Group,
Exactly. And so, we're lucky. And you want me to have them come out?
There we go. It keeps hitting.
Okay, I know. No, I felt bad. I saw you jump. But with excellence, what we're trying to do, we are now, the largest collection of diverse storytellers. And we're lucky enough to have the Bel-Air content within that channel or that collection. But the goal of ours jointly is how do we become a destination for diverse storytellers to continue to tell their story in bigger ways that are authentic. And so just when you think about what excellence can be, or when you guys were beginning the journey with us and even being willing to let us go on this journey with you, what was going through your head? Like, what were you thinking?
Well, it's just so great to have a collection that is targeted and programming specifically to that cross-cultural audience, and then partnering with ad sales on it to make sure that the advertisers have a direct contact or direct closeness to that audience, and it really kind of not gave us the excuse or the opportunity, but now it's almost like a playground, right, to play with. And we're going to develop some really great stuff, partnered with you guys and some others. And the rich inventory we already have of shows, it just really, for me, it's fun. It's like we kind of have nothing to lose and so much to gain. And that's what I really like about it.
It's interesting, and I want to come back what it means because, in the immortal words of 50, he said, he's got the 1 through 6 show, or not anymore. I'm sure Bel-Air is upseated someplace in there, but anyway, he has a lot of shows that, that this market appreciates.
Yeah.
But he said I could make shows for general market, but I'd be competing with everything since the beginning of time. But here, there's just a dearth. There's or absence of.
There is a void.
Right, there's a void. And to me, that's exciting. It also, for me, feels like I get to see, there's certain creators that I get it, but I don't see my life in it. And, I just wonder, because you said when growing up, that when she talked about her mahogany skin. So as a creator in this, how important is that for you to be able to tell those stories or share that experience that's more authentic to the actual audience than maybe a caricature?
Oh, it means everything. I mean, I think back to the first season of Bel-Air. I knew that this might be something great when Peacock actually allowed the first season, parts of it to actually be filmed in West Philadelphia. Right. And I'm like, people at home who are from West Philadelphia are going to stand up and scream and say, that is us. And think how often this group of people sit at home and they say, and that's not us. Wow, why would they even do that to us? So much of this community sits back saying, they just don't get us. Who is making these decisions? Authenticity for a network, I think, is really about courage, because it takes money and it takes courage to say yes to these ideas. And the third thing about it, too, for me is, it's the small choices you make as an actor, as a writer, that might be the thing that keeps an audience engaged for a lifetime. I think about how hard it was for them to make sure they found the right Will, the right Aunt Viv. They knew that certain characters, if you don't get it right, you're going to blow up the whole thing. But just think, another network might be like, just anybody will
Right.
work. And it's like, no, not for this show. This show was so iconic because it was the first time hip hop came to the mainstream in a certain kind of way. And then, so then you have to think, how do we do it today? And hip hop today is very different than it was in 1990, whatever. So I think it's very important. And also, I just think, even the makeup of the people who are behind the scenes, like you don't realize that you're telling a story even if the show's on mute. If it's on mute, can you still have a story told? And on this show, you can. The costume design, Queen Sylvia, what she has done with this show, and I talked to Will Smith about it, about his show. He was like, oh my God, trying to get the costumes right, it's a vernacular that only certain people will know. And that's true for any culture, but especially for this culture, because that's where I sit.
No, it's interesting because this is our first and foremost, I think, at the end of the day, what you said is giving advertisers access. But it is the same thing that what I always joke is that P&G did in the 50s. They knew that NBC could reach everybody, but there wasn't resonant representative content, so they created soap operas. And that's how they unlocked consumerism from an entire generation and gave them competitive advantage. That's what's sitting right in front of us today. And it's funny because we'll have clients come to some of the productions we do, and they'll see an all diverse crew. And they're like, we've never seen that.
Right.
And we're like, yeah, because of that. Even down to the food that's, in catering, like every single thing is authentic to that audience, so you get something that you relate to and connect with. And what's interesting, I think, also about Bel-Air is it was also the first time where, without it being said, you told a story of rich dad, poor dad.
Right.
Without it really being said, but in a right. It wasn't on the nose, but and that even couldn't have been told without it being a stereotype if it wasn't told by the right creator. So tell us a little bit about kind of right now what you're doing with creators and kind of what you see as part of that journey outside of even the Bel-Air world.
Well, I see the dearth that exists out here too, and I think the dearth is never because of a lack of ideas. It's about a lack of connecting the dots for people. I started Creatricity about 4 years ago, and at first it was just a black dress brunch at my house, and I was like, oh, my black actress friends, and some of them had their own TV shows, some were up and coming, and I was like, what are the issues that we're facing?
Right.
And there would just be simple things like, oh, I have a project, but I need a producer. Who do you need? Oh, I know somebody. And then it would turn into, people give me a call and they'd say, hey, I'm looking for an Asian producer. I'm looking for an Asian director. I'm like, oh, I know people. And then I just started, and then I had a friend who was doing a big show for another network, and he got in trouble because it was about a black man, a very famous sports figure, but no one on the team was black. And he was like, Cassie, is this really bad? I'm like, it's a little tone. And he was like, well, do you know any black producers? And I'm like, yes. And I said, oh, I get it. People need a space where they can create authentic rapport with vetted people in the industry. And it can't just be a red carpet. Like right now in Hollywood, it's not like famous people live next door to each other. We're like, hey girl, what you doing? No, we bump into each other at an event like this on a red carpet. We're like, oh my God, let's talk, but everyone's so busy. Right. I create intentional programming, events. Sometimes it's just coming to sit and watch a TV show together. We have a Q&A, or it might be around certain ideas, and we'll have like the heads of studios, like the head of Mattel who did Barbie, or the head of magazine conglomerates. But in that room are actors, writers, directors, entertainment lawyers, producers, cinematographers. Like, you never know who you're gonna bump into. And the point is, you come into a space where you know you can trust everyone because I curated every person in that room. And what has happened? People have created great deals, people have created great shows, they've been able to get the investment or the VC money. And I'm like, yeah, Creatricity. We just create the stage for everyone to find each other. And then people are like, oh, I got an idea. Oh, you need a space? I know somebody. You need money? Oh, I know somebody who might be able to help. And then hopefully they come to you or you, and they be like, so we built this thing. And hopefully they say, and it's because of a Creatricity party.
And let them come to us before it's even built. This is excellence. Let's make excellent stuff. And I think to that point, Val, I think one of the pieces which you touched on as well is the cultural impact. Well, first of all, I love what you just said, because I think that we forget sometimes that just putting people in proximity.
Yeah.
It's just like
and to create rapport,
It's
even if you
rock.
don't look like me. I say you don't have to be black to like me. I just think you need to be in the same room. And a lot of people don't get to be in the same room.
It's true. I remember hearing the expression growing up in the industry of like, it's who you know.
Right.
And I used to think like, I don't care about that. I'm going to make it on my own. And I realized like, that's so silly to think that because everyone has been thriving on who they know.
That's right.
And making these connections. And people with our skin color didn't always get to be in the room or be at that party or be in that, seminar or whatever. And I think that that's what's happening more and more now, and allowing those connections to happen, as you said, are creating.
Well, when I was a
deals.
kid, I thought Hollywood was like Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte and Jane Fonda are all in the same room. Like,
Right.
let's change the world. And then they say, let's do this thing together. And then I get to Hollywood and I'm like, there's no room like that? And I was like, I can just create a room. It's like such a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And then you leave smart people together, they'll create smart things.
Yes,
I agree.
I agree.
And we forget sometimes, when we started, we were a collective, and so we're a collective, I think 4,000 companies today, but it was 4. But the idea was, if you look at collective bargaining, for example, the average salary of an NBA player in 1999 before they signed was $300,000. Now I think it's like 4.8. We're all stronger together. But how do you bring people together so they can find that space? We only have a few minutes, but I just want to kind of get for the audience a little bit of advice. But before I go to the advice question, Val, I just want to ask one piece, because sometimes I think we also forget cultural impact of what we put into the world. I remember I was at an airport and the guy sat down, he was telling me how much Obama sucked. I said, look, man, you don't understand. It doesn't matter. Even if he would be the worst president on planet Earth, the fact that my kid can wake up and see that cultural impact, I'm voting all day. Let's go. But, what we put into the world has bigger impact than what you can measure in the X's and O's of the reach. And so when you think of that, how do you think about the cultural impact of the stuff that you bring online?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because obviously we look at data, we look at insights, we look at numbers, and it's a business. But when you can, have the makeup artist story I just told you, and people are actually sharing things with you, and it's not gratuitous because you're at, the Emmy Awards, and people are saying, I love your work, and they don't even know who you are. I know that doesn't happen to you. But it's, I remember, we did a couple years ago a series called Best Man Final Chapters, which, the Best Man franchise is so great and important in my life. It's just one of those movies I couldn't wait to see. And then it was coming to Peacock. Peacock, this was about a couple years ago. It was still relatively small, and I knew it was going to be a hit because of the people who were telling me, the types of people. It was resonating in the community that it was going to hit. And I was like, oh, they know about it. They're going to be the ambassadors for it. And it really, and by the way, huge hit. And it was, again, a show that's very authentic to a specific experience, because not every experience within a culture is the same. And it was quality writing. It was very well cast, as Bel-Air is. And it just was a groundswell. By the way, that was a binge show. We didn't roll that one out weekly. It was right around the holidays. It was perfect timing. And it just really hit in a way that we hadn't seen since Bel-Air, which had premiered earlier. And it was just, when you hear that feedback, and again, it's not gratuitous, I just know, I'm like, we have something, because this person just said this, and they're not saying it because they have to.
Right. Well, I'm going to come back and ask for advice, hardest thing, and any recommendations, but I'm going to get shot if I don't shamelessly plug. I will say, when we rolled out Excellence, and it actually came out on Peacock, because you can go now and it's on the top tile, but even before that they were testing it, and I got to pull it up September 30th and saw it, and it was like a little tear, like we had birthed a little child here into the world. I was very took photos, texted to every. It's very exciting, and aside from it, it is historic as well. But more than that is, you know, talking about measurements, the results that we saw from our early work together already shows that, you know, this is going to be, so for all the advertisers in here, take your checkbooks out. I'll be coming around with a bucket to collect them. We like the money that floats, not that jingles. But more than that is that what also brought a tear to my eye was a little bit that this can also continue to be a destination for storytellers like yourself.
Yeah.
And if we can become like the premier place where it's like, we know that that's the goal. And so to me, it's like, let's go win, and hopefully the industry's behind us and winning. So did I do a good job, Cavel's out there someplace? Okay. Chief Growth Officer. So just you know, look, I'm sure it hasn't been an easy road. Piece of advice for the creators out there that are, you know, that look at you and say, how do I become you?
Listen, a lot of prayer. No, I don't think there's, you know what, I love Jennifer Lewis. She's like, the elevator to success is broken, take the stairs. It's the truest statement. And the stairs are the stairs I took, which is I create with the people who are sitting right next to me. The people next to you are way more innovative than the one ahead of you. Stop thinking you got to talk to the person who's already big. No. You want to talk to the person who's right here at your same level. Listen, I went to NYU for grad school, and they say talented people flock together. So if you create side by side, just keep creating. And what I've noticed is, like, this show came along because I wrote a film, and she was a visual artist, and she had a lot of the same issues as Aunt Viv that season. My whole life has been about creating in the meantime, and then they'll call. But you want to have this feeling of, they're pulling me away from my love. You got to only do this from the love, not for the money, because it's the love. And Bel-Air works because there's a lot of love everywhere. It's not that people are trying to get rich and trying to be famous, because the audience can feel it. We're in it for the art of it. So that's my advice. Do it for the love, and do it with the person right next to you. I
love that. And Val, I know we joke, all joking aside, I mean, your role is a very sought after, you know. And again, I know, and especially women on the executive side of television, I've had a few conversations with, and I understand that piece. But just, piece of advice for somebody who looks at you and says, how do I become Val? Minus the makeup artist. How do I?
Talking to as many people as you can to figure it out. I was very lucky. I fell into this business and fell into it and then realized this is exactly what I wanted to do. But if I look back at my childhood, there's a roadmap that would have led me here. But, you know, just talk to as many people as you can, and also listen. Because, you know, a lot of people want to talk, or they have a show but they don't want to hear the feedback. So be able to be self-aware, hear feedback, and choose to grow. And you'll get there.
I love it. Let's give a huge round of applause. Thank you so much. I know we're over. You're yelling at me, but it was worth it. Thank you.